Hello everybody, this is Custom MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. Now, every Sunday I release a video regarding something to custom MTG, that being custom cards, custom mechanics, and just things built by the community. So today what I'm going to be doing is breaking down 10 custom commanders that were built by members of the Magic the Gathering community, and I'm going to tell you what I think about them, how you'd build the deck, maybe problems with them. So everything I'm looking at here is from a commander perspective, something very casual, but yeah. I hope you guys enjoy this. I love spoiler season, and so why not have it be all the time? I know, of course, that 2021 spoilers are going on now, but this is just a fun little bonus on top of that. So, again, these are all custom cards. You'll be able to see who made the custom cards, because I did not make any of them. In the upper left, you'll see their Reddit username. So, starting off, we have Daren the Reunifier. Another thing to note really quickly before I get into this, I have actually not read any of these cards. I thought it'd be interesting to see, for you to kind of get my first opinion of it, similar to spoiler season. So, Daren the Reunifier, it's a 1 white, blue, black, so an Esper commander, legendary creature, human cleric. Spirits and zombies you control get +1/+1. And pay 2, tap, sacrifice a spirit and a zombie, return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is an interesting kind of commander. Normally we see commanders that care about a certain tribe, so I'm going to care about zombies, or I'm going to care about merfolk, or something, but this cares about spirits and zombies. And so you kind of have to build your deck in such a way that it has an equal amount of spirits and zombies, that way you can always have a spirit and a zombie to sacrifice. So generally what this deck is probably going to want to do is it's probably going to want to mill itself, and then get out a bunch of creatures, get out spirits, zombies, maybe find some way to repeatedly make zombies, which, isn't that hard, and spirits, and then you can pay 2 and basically resurrect anything from your graveyard. So big targets, big spells, cards that you think are going to win you the game, such as some of the Titans that don't, Eldrazi Titans who don't shuffle themselves into your library. Pretty much anything that can go in the graveyard that's pretty big and stompy. I feel like it's probably in the right colors. White here, white's there obviously for the spirit, blue is there, because you would want to run this in a mill deck, and black is there because, zombies and resurrection. So, yeah, I feel like this card is pretty well balanced. It's a 3/3 for 4. I don't see too many balance problems with it. Again, it's just a reanimator, except it's on your commander, so you can guaranteed get it. So that's pretty cool. I could see myself building a deck around this. Next, we have Bag Avatar of Poverty. It's a 1 white, blue, black, another Esper commander, a legendary creature avatar 0/4, and it says lands you control don't untap during your untap step. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that opponent chooses 1. Bag's controller gains 7, creates 7 gold tokens, or you lose 7 life. So the idea here is that you're going to get to 7 mana, preferably using a lot of mana rocks because your lands don't untap. Maybe you don't run many lands at all, and you're just using a bunch of mana rocks. But then what's going to happen is each opponent is either going to have to lose life or let you have lands. And so let's say, you play this on turn 4, they could be giving you, the table could be giving you 21 mana the next turn. I think, lands you control don't untap during your untap step, that is a pretty big downside, but the fact that it doesn't, if it said lands and artifacts you control don't untap during your untap step, that would be something. But the fact that you could use mana rocks still, means that if you build your deck right, that isn't a downside. I mean, it is a downside, it's just a very small downside, and you can just either be draining all of your opponents for a ton of life, or be creating tons of mana. And there's a point where players are like, well, they already have, 28 mana? I'm just going to give them 7 more. And I do get it's temporary mana, but it just takes 28 mana, and you can just win the game right there on the spot. So I think this could be a little bit overpowered. I might push it up to 5 or maybe even 6 mana. But then at that point, I wish it was like at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if you control 7 lands, then you're requiring your opponent, or you're requiring the player to get out lands that they can't use, but they still need to get them out in order to activate the ability. It makes it a lot more fair, and then the whole 7 gold tokens helps. But yeah, I think there could be some balancing issues here, but I think it would be a very fun thing to play, and it would be a very big removal magnet, unfortunately, though. Alright, next we have Nevrella, the Glassblower. It's green, blue, and red for legendary creature Elf Artificer 2/2, and it just has a tap ability, which, before I even read what the tap ability does, generally are some weaker commanders because you get it out and you have to wait for it to come all the way back to your turn. Now, of course, this is in green and red, and both have ways of giving things haste, so, it's not that big of a deal, but just something to note that this could be a 3-cost 2/2, and that's it. And if it's a good tap ability, it'll be a removal magnet. So we tap, it taps, and you can tap an untapped dragon you control, so you have to have a dragon, and create a token that's a copy of another target creature. It doesn't have to be yours, except it's a glass artifact creature with toughness 1, and when this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. So the idea here is that your deck has to have her, and you're probably going to be running a bunch of dragons, because you have to be able to tap an untapped dragon you control. Then you're probably going to copy one of your dragons, or if your opponent has some amazing card, you're going to copy that. And then it's going to be a very fragile thing that can basically break at any moment, which is, similar to glass, and I really enjoy that. It works well with the art, and yeah, I think it's not super busted or too powerful for the fact that, it does have to get all the way back to your turn. This is only happening once per turn. It's not like whenever a dragon enters the battlefield, create a copy of it. But yeah, this can also duplicate other opponents' stuff. So it does have some interesting, you're not always going to play the same way every time, which are good commanders. Commanders that are just, I'm going to win with the same cards every time, are not as fun as those that are, it depends on what my opponent does and all that. So I like this. Next, we have Drevos the Crux Caster. It's a red and a green for a legendary creature, human shaman. Whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, choose one. Put X +1/+1 counters on Drevos. You may remove 5 +1/+1 counters from Drevos. If you do, double the value of X. So this is very similar to a lot of X cards we've already seen. Unbound Flourishing is an enchantment that just doubles X for 3. Now, what this allows you to do is, this can be a commander, but I almost would prefer running Zaxara, the new commander from Commander 2020, for an X spell deck, because it's creating a lot of creatures instead of one big one. Now, a thing to note here is that you don't ever have to remove the 5 counters. You can just play this as like a Voltron deck, where you're playing a bunch of X spells, you're burning out your opponents using burn spells or hydras or whatever, but also you have this big creature that can basically swing for lethal fairly quickly if you build this in the right kind of deck. So you're going to want to run a lot of ramp. Things like Selvala are really good, because even if you're not, Selvala lets you pay a green tap and add mana equal to the highest power among creatures. And so you can ensure that every single X spell you're casting is increasing the power among creatures you control, because you're putting counters on him. So if you build your deck right, this can be very potent. I don't think it's overpowered, but I do think it's fun. And we've seen effects similar to this in the past. So I enjoy this. So next we have E6470 of the Third Path. It's a legendary artifact creature artificer. So it's an artifact that's an artificer. It's also a 1 red 2/3, and you can pay 2 and a red and tap and create a token that's a copy of target artifact card in your graveyard, except it's a 4/4 creature in addition to its other types. It gains haste, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. Now, couple issues. First off, is the 2 in 2 and a red is not actually the symbol, but that's just a little formatting error. I think this is an interesting commander. Again, it runs into the same problem the Glassblower had, that it can't do things the turn it comes out. Also, this thing is weak to artifact removal, so that already depowers it a decent amount. Now, is the fact that it can turn, your Soul Ring that you have in your graveyard into a 4/4 creature with haste that powerful? I mean, it actually can be. If we have one of the spell bombs, well, it'd have to be the red one, because this is a mono red commander. Any artifact with a sacrifice ability, for example, Commander Sphere, it lets you sacrifice it to draw a card. So now you're paying 3 tapping to create a 4/4. You swing with it. If your opponent blocks in a weird way, or even if they don't, they're going to take 4 damage, and then you're going to sacrifice it and draw a card. And that became 2 and a red, deal 4 damage to a target opponent, and draw a card, which is not bad. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that's overpowered. I'm just saying there are a lot of interesting things you can do with it. Now, the fact that you have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step is a very potent ability, because it needs to be in your graveyard. It could have been interesting if you made it exile it, or, it lost all abilities, and so you had to have a sacrifice outlet for artifacts, and so he basically brought things back to life, but only temporarily, and then you have to find a way to kill them in order to bring them back to life. but, you know, not bad. I enjoy this. I think it could be fun. I think it might work better, though, in a deck instead of as the lead of a deck. It being monocolored, and I always say this, monocolored commanders generally just aren't that exciting for me because I would rather have access to other colors. All right, next we have Bandit Lord Rousseau. 1 red, so again, same casting cost as the last one. Legendary creature, human rogue, 2/2 with menace, and it says the first red spell you cast each turn has spectacle, 1 red. Okay. This is kind of insane because if you have a way to deal any damage to an opponent, a tap ability, a recurring trigger, anything, you can cast any spell for 1 red. Now, it does have to be red, but if you're running this in a commander deck, it is already going to have to be red. And I get this is, you know, if this were printed, it would be so that you couldn't just run this in a Joda deck or whatever and have an alternate way of casting things. But obviously, this deck would need to have a balance of things that deal damage to opponents and big spells. Now, what kind of big spells are there? There are some decently big ones. Of course, if it could do any spell, and this was a multicolored thing, this would be even more crazy. This one might need a balance check. I might have bumped up the price a little bit, either Spectacle 5. But then again, you are cutting a lot of things out that way. I don't know. This one would... I can't tell you how powerful it is now. It is powerful. I can't tell you how broken it is now. I would have to try to play with it in order to see that. All right, next we have a Poestep, obelisk, tyrant, 2 blue, black for legendary creature snake, 3/5. Okay. During each of your turns, you may cast up to 1 artifact card from your graveyard. As an additional cost to cast this artifact spell, sacrifice a non-legendary creature. Okay. First off, let me talk about the wording of this one. I don't think it would be worded that way. I think it would probably say, although I don't know. Okay, what I would have done is I would have said on the card, sacrifice a non-legendary creature, you may cast target artifact spell from your graveyard this turn. Of course, that is technically slightly different, so I don't know how you would word this. It just feels a little awkward. In terms of its power level, you know, it's kind of a Luris type effect where you can keep recasting things without the limitation of it being, you know, a certain power. Now, this deck would probably run a lot of artifact creatures because, you know, you can sacrifice an artifact creature to cast something and then get back that artifact creature later. But it can also be used for any, again, artifact that likes to sacrifice itself. So, yeah, there's a lot of things you could do here. Again, artifacts that sacrifice themselves, artifact creatures, all would be pretty good in this deck. Next, we have Mullica, Solemn, Jest Mage. It's 1 and white, blue, black, which apparently is the theme of this video, is Esper Commanders. Legendary creature, human wizard, 3/3. Whenever it enters the battlefield, create Limusa, Departed Sister, a legendary 1/1 white spirit cleric token, creature token with flying, and prevent all damage that would be dealt to creatures named Mullica, Solemn, Jest Mage. So the idea here is that you're creating a token, and as long as that token survives, this thing can't take damage. Whenever a spirit you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. If that spirit was named Limosa, Departed Sister, each opponent loses 3 life instead. So it's kind of like a partner commander, but it's all on 1 card. You're having it enter the battlefield, creating a copy, you know, or not creating a copy, creating a spirit. You're going to want to run a lot of spirits in this deck, ways to sacrifice things, maybe things that have cost of dealing damage to things. I don't know. There's lots of interesting ways you could utilize this. But yeah, you're probably just going to run this as an aristocrat deck that's very limited to spirits, which is kind of meh. I don't see how else you could really build this. I would rather run something that just allows me to run any kind of aristocrat deck. But if you want to run a spirit aristocrat deck, this would be an amazing commander for that. Next, we have a Varus, Martyr of Spite, 4 red and a white for a legendary creature avatar, flying, haste, vigilance. Whenever Varus is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target. So we've seen these kind of effects before, very powerful. They let you turn spells that say deal X damage to target creature to deal X damage to target player, or any target really. Then you can pay 1 and a white, and the next 1 damage that would be dealt to you or another permanent you control is dealt to a Varus. So allows you to basically if you have infinite mana, you can just not take damage with this. And, you know, if you're being dealt 4 damage and then you activate this 4 times, paying 8 mana, you can redirect all of that damage away. Redirection of damage is very fun. I just don't know how powerful this would really be. It doesn't really have card draw or anything. That's something those 2 colors lack. Although a 4/6 flying hates vigilance for 6 is not bad, and it has that cool little effect. If your opponent, the issue here is similar to the can't be dealt damage of the previous card. Kill spell will just kill this, and you can't do anything about it. So yeah, it's okay. And that's gonna do it. So those were all of the cards. I want to know, what did you guys think of all those cards? What did you guys think of my analysis of the cards? Did you think that I thought some cards were too powerful, too underpowered? Am I missing something? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.